This video is made to be watched either with or without sound. In the last video, Nebuchadnezzar emerged from his 7-year humiliation a changed man. He repented and gave glory to God, and great majesty was added to him. Nebuchadnezzar reigned 43 years in Babylon. Then, in his 44th regnal year, which was his 43rd accessional year, he died, and his son Evil-Marduk took the throne. This was in the summer of the 36th year of Jehoiachin's captivity. Evil-Marduk would reign for only 2 years, and in his first year, at the end of the 12th month, he released Jehoiachin from prison. This was the 37th year of Jehoiachin's captivity. He spoke kindly to him and gave Jehoiachin a seat of honor at the king's table. Jehoiachin was 55 years old when he was released from prison, and clay tablets had been discovered that document the monthly prison rations of oil and barley provided to Jehoiachin and his 5 sons during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. During the reign of Evil-Marduk in Babylon, Artaxerxes, the Persian king of Anshan and father of Cyrus the Great, was reigning in Susa. Artaxerxes is still reigning under the overlordship of Ahasuerus, king of the Medes, who has moved his throne from Susa to Ecbatana. In a few years, we will see Artaxerxes still reigning in Susa, and his son will be referred to as Cyrus, king of Anshan. In the 3rd year of Nabonidus, the Nabonidus cylinder will call the young Cyrus second to Astyages, king of the Medes. A few months before Jehoiachin was released from prison in Babylon, Nehemiah was in Susa, serving as cupbearer to Artaxerxes. In the month of Kislev, Nehemiah got word concerning the Jews that had been allowed to return with Ezra to Jerusalem to restore temple worship just 12 years earlier. Nehemiah was greatly saddened to learn that the remnant in Jerusalem was in distress and shame, as the walls and gates that had been broken down and burned still had not been repaired. Nehemiah devised a plan, and in the 1st month of the 20th year of Artaxerxes, Artaxerxes graciously allowed Nehemiah to go to Judah to rebuild Jerusalem. The king provided Nehemiah timber to make beams for the gates of the fortress of the temple and the wall of the city, and for a house that Nehemiah would live in. This work received opposition from Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite. If we remember, the Ammonites were responsible for the murder of Gedaliah, the appointed governor of Judah, right after Jerusalem was destroyed. Despite the fierce opposition, the wall was finished on the 25th day of the month Elul in 52 days. It is worth noting that among the workers listed in Nehemiah chapter 3, there were the high priest, goldsmiths, perfumers, the Levites, many priests, temple servants, and gatekeepers. This is what we would expect, because these are the same people that Artaxerxes had allowed to return with Ezra just 13 years earlier to restore temple worship in Jerusalem. Also, despite what is commonly taught and believed, the rebuilding of the wall preceded the big return of all the people with Zerubbabel in the first year of Cyrus by 22 years. Although the repairing of the wall and gates was now completed, the dedication of the wall and the rebuilding of the temple would have to wait until after the big return of all the people with Zerubbabel. Bishlam, Mithredath, Tabeel, and their associates wrote a letter to Artaxerxes against Jerusalem, claiming that the people that Artaxerxes had allowed to return to Judah were planning a rebellion. They cited that Jerusalem had a history of revolting against its overlords, and in fact, that was the reason the city was destroyed in the first place. Artaxerxes searched the records and found that indeed Jerusalem did have a history of rising against kings, and that rebellion and sedition had been made in it, and that mighty kings in Jerusalem had in fact ruled over and received tribute, custom, and toll in times past. Not wanting to be held responsible for a rebellion by the Jews, since he had authorized the return of both Ezra and Nehemiah with the intent to rebuild, Artaxerxes issued a decree that the workers be made to stop and that the city not be rebuilt unless and until he decreed otherwise. Thus, the work on the house of God that is in Jerusalem stopped, and it ceased until the second year of Darius. Ezra chapter 4, verse 24. This snapshot of the timeline PDF goes from Josiah to Artaxerxes Longimanus. This area of the spreadsheet shows what we just covered in this video. Each row of the timeline PDF spreadsheet represents a year, which ensures the accuracy of the relative chronology. The continuity of the absolute chronology is referenced in the first two columns, which contain the consecutive years from creation and from the flood, respectively. This printable Babylonian, Median, and Persian king chart uses the years from the flood that can be referenced to the numbers in the second column in the timeline PDF. Here's a link to a 3-minute video that explains what we mean by accessional year versus regnal year and how to identify which is being used and when. You can download the complete timeline PDF spreadsheet from creation through Christ, perfect for referencing on your tablet, phone, or computer.